Okay, in this video, I want to talk about some things that happened on November 16th of 2022. And what happened is that I had a conference that was coming up, a small conference, like no more than 10 or 15 people, with a media company that helps to connect writers and artists with TV and movie producers. And the CEO over the company, he was actually leading the conference meeting and everything. And I feel like I learned quite a bit from that. But the weird thing is that morning, just hours before I was supposed to have that meeting, my phone completely blacked out. It wouldn't charge, it wouldn't turn on anything. 1 second it was fine, the next minute it was just dead. And so I tried another phone that I hadn't touched or turned on in more than a year, and that one was dead too. And that one was turned off and just sitting in a cabinet, and nothing. So, in that same day that my phone was blacked out, the morning that I met with, the morning before I met with the media company online, fortunately I had a backup device. But that same day, I got rejected for my unemployment application, which I'm not complaining about, but it wasn't enough to reject my application. Like, no, they had to take it a step further and not only reject my application, but note in the system that I just quit and that I didn't want to work. That's what they put there. When the truth is, there were some problems and I was fired. I didn't quit. There were some health issues. There were some other issues, and they said that I quit and I just didn't want to work. At this job that I didn't even have that long, and that's terrible. Like they couldn't just say no. No, they had to say no and add in some extra shit that wasn't true. I didn't quit. And at the job before that was outside of Ohio in Wyoming, that was like 100 times worse. In Wyoming, there was multiple refusals to file my doctor's note, and when I left that job, I was coughing up small quantities of blood. No, I didn't have a lot of frequent coughing. I wasn't coughing very much, but on the rare occasions when I did cough, I was coughing up blood, spitting up blood in my bathroom sink. I was limping just trying to make it from the toilet to my bed for like a week. And I was terrified because I didn't know if that was going to be permanent or not. If it was permanent and if that hadn't improved some, then I would have just been outdoors freezing to death and nobody would have gave a shit. When I lost that restaurant job in Wyoming, before I could even get a second full paycheck in my hand, that job was gone. I tried talking to upper management. I tried talking to middle management. I tried the so-called nicer people. Nothing. And as if that wasn't enough, the local, like, little ultra mini bus system that was like call on demand, they wouldn't even come pick me up to try to take me to go find a different job. They wouldn't pick me up, which I probably had COVID. So even if I had got access to transportation, I probably would have just made people sick anyway because I was coughing up blood. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have a regular frequent cough, but I was still very sick. And even if they hadn't gone to extreme and not allowed me to speak, not allowing me to have access to transportation, even if they hadn't gone to that extreme, I probably would have made other people sick, just trying to find a replacement to go to. in the hope that there would be something after my body got better. But that didn't happen. I end up homeless again. And so that Wyoming situation, it was really bad, and I'm pretty sure that in the records it probably said, oh, she just couldn't do the job. Oh, she just didn't want to work. Oh, it probably said a lot of stuff like that, or like, oh, she just doesn't know how to talk to people. I'm pretty sure that nowhere in the Wyoming records would it say, oh, she was coughing up blood. Oh, she was sick. Hey, she didn't want to mess around with her bisexual manager and his girlfriend and their other coworkers. I'm pretty sure it's not going to say that in any Wyoming records. And I don't have any connections there. I'm not saying what city it was in. But it probably says none of what really actually happened, and that's really kind of hard, where to go through life spending so many years where it's like the overwhelming majority of places, they're like, oh, hey, we can do anything because nobody's going to say anything. Nobody's going to care. And it's like, that's the attitude. And before the Wyoming job, a few years before that, I briefly had a very brief job that didn't last very long at Amazon. And I was overdosing on Tylenol to the point where it was affecting my heart. I started eventually having like heart failure symptoms. And, I was having sharp pains in my lower body just trying to get out of bed, to walk out the door, to go to work. I would be hurting before my job even started. And this is how I held on to my job for the brief time I did have it. I was overdosing on ibuprofen to the point where it affected my heart. And what they did was, after I got temporary disability leave and they moved me to a less intensive job, that's normally a department reserved for the girls who look like models. That's normally a department reserved for the elderly women and the young women who look like models, and the less than perfect women who have social status. So with me being there, it was a problem. And they stole my jacket from my workstation and stole my wallet from my locker that had a company issued lock. And what they did was they did no investigation on my wallet being stolen from my locker that had a company issued lock on it. They gave me back my jacket, and I know who stole it because I saw the person who stole it in a vision. Like, I knew who stole it, and I knew I was going to get that back. But my wallet, I didn't get that back. It wasn't documented. And in the company paperwork, they said I just had a nasty attitude and didn't know how, and they were investigating me for misconduct. And I didn't cuss anybody out. I wasn't yelling at anyone. People who do these types of things, it's not enough for them to reject you. No, they got to reject you and then pile mountains of shit on top of you. So that way, when the next person at the next job decides to chew you up, spit you out, and tear you apart, they can go back and say, oh, well, look at these other people who did it too. There's a history, there's a track record. They can't all be lying. And see, that's how they keep you trapped in these cycles with these false records in these databases, because people who are bullies, they like to work in groups. And it's not, and it's not all fully and completely white people. It's a lot of Black people who feed into this stuff. It's a lot of Black women who feed into it because they're exempted from it and they profit from it. There are a lot of darker skinned, non-biracial Black women who have either pretty privilege or sellout privilege, popularity privilege, whatever hoe privilege, whatever kind of privilege they got, they're banking on it is Black women. They exploit that. There's a lot of Black men who do the same thing. My own brother even did it. Like when my wallet got stolen from my locker, he went around and told everybody at the warehouse that I left my wallet laying on the ground. And I told him, I said, Brandon, everybody, it's the Christmas season. Everybody rides the bus to work for free for Christmas. We all get free bus fare. Everybody from our company does. Why would I pull out a wallet when we have free bus fare from November through January? I said, how was I going to leave my wallet on the ground when I had literally no reason to take it out because we all ride free? I told him, look at my employee badge. I'm wearing it around my neck. For all I know, my brother probably helped those people to do that to me. And then after they fired me and did an investigation on me and me alone, and none at all on the people who stole my fucking wallet, I couldn't get a job somewhere else. I had no driver's license. I had no identification of any kind. And on top of that, my brother was telling me to get out immediately after my wallet was stolen from my locker with a company-issued lock. He was telling me to get out. So here I was. I had less than a week to find somewhere to live. I had no identification. I had nothing to try to get another job with. And, you know, and here my brother was going around lying to all our coworkers, claiming I left it laying on the ground. And that wasn't enough. He took it a step further and went to my mother, who I'm not even going to talk about right now. He went to our mother saying the same thing. He had to go to our whole family with that same lie, like as if spreading it at work wasn't enough, as if helping a train line of people that's like 10 years long, people in white neighborhoods, Black, Mexican neighborhoods who have done this kind of shit to me over and over again, as if feeding into that wasn't enough. No, he had to go to our family and do the same thing in our family too. I mean, just a straight coon. Really, like in the sense of the word that Black people mean when they use that term. That's my brother. But it's okay. He gets a pass to do that because he's dark-skinned, and it's okay for him to do that. It's okay for him to say that every single Black person who gets trapped into cycles of this kind of exploitation that lasts many, many years and gets carried out in many places over and over again, different businesses, different states, different cities, he gets a free pass to say that everyone subjected to that stuff like me is just stupid and deserves it. And he gets a free pass to say that because he's dark skinned. And they say, oh, well, life is hard for Black men. And it's like every time I see a Black man doing something ugly on the level of like what my brother does, that's what Black male worshipers like my mother, that's what they say. They say, oh, it's hard to be a Black man and they got to do this, they got to do that. And I'm like, no, they didn't have to do none of that. They could have just kept their opinions to themselves. They could have just stayed out of it instead of feeding into the nastiness to try to prove their loyalty. Because that's what it is. You know, feeding into a lot of nastiness to prove their loyalty. And when I see what a lot of Black and brown people are doing to survive, when I see the level of shit they gotta look the other way and pretend they don't see, when I see these circumstances that favor those of us who are more comfortable with a more sociopathic way of life, you know, when I see that getting favored, I think, wow, you know, even if they could wake up tomorrow and all of the external pressures forcing that stopped, I think a lot of my people would still be doing the same ugly shit to me and to each other. Even if they could wake up tomorrow and the external pressures for it wasn't there, I think a lot of them, they still do the same shit. Like, really? I really do believe that at this point. After so many years of this type of activity over and over and over again. And, I just honestly feel like we don't really live in a real civilization, not a full, complete one. And I kind of feel like humanity never has had a full and complete real civilization. And when I looked at some pictures of some mummies from South America, and out of those 3 mummies, the one in the middle had a kinky Negro afro on her head. That really drove the point home for me, where even back then, where in their rituals and they wanted to do human sacrifice, most of the victims was women and kids. Not hormonally overactive men, not men who don't have no self-control, not female pedophiles, not incestuous people. Oh, no. They just mass murdered their own women. I'm looking right there at a mummy of a black woman with kinky hair and afro. And they killed her and stuck her in a tomb for a ritual. This whole culture of with being a female, that's an automatic devaluation. And the sacred harem cow lie, that's kept this shit going for so many thousands of years. They never stopped doing it. They just found more creative ways to keep doing it because this is their approach to selective breeding. It is. That's their approach to selective breeding, where they mass murder a lot of men, and if you're a woman and you don't fit the lifestyle that they're trying to forcibly create, then you're the one getting shitted on, you're the one getting abandoned, you're the one getting ridiculed to entertain everybody else and to make everybody else feel good about themselves. This is their approach to selective breeding. And, even when there was no white supremacy, they were still doing it. They were mass murdering women. 50, 100 women at a time, all dead for a ritual. And only very rarely the men. So, I know everything cannot be blamed on white supremacy, because even when there was very few, almost no white people, the sacrifice was literal instead of just in other ways, like beating you up, abandoning you, murdering their wife, murdering their girlfriends at rates 4 times higher than other races. But all these years I've hoped that my spiritual path would help me to find a way to a community where I can be my normal, natural self and to not be beat over the head with the United States of Africa culture or the United States of Germany or whatever, or Mexico, whatever culture. I always hoped my spiritual journey would lead me to a community where I could be my normal, natural self. I could be a regular person and not be disrespected, devalued, and preyed on so bad like what I have been over and over again in multiple states, multiple cities, different companies, different governments. It's just so much stuff. I would be talking for hours if I went into all of it. And I always hoped that maybe I could find a place where I could be safe and I could be treated like a normal, regular person, where I can, if there's something wrong, I can have it fixed. And if I'm going to get rejected, it's just a rejection, but not a whole lot of other shit piled up on top of it, you know, where I'm not having years and years worth of fraud and exaggerations and omissions just vomited out on my head in records and databases. A place where I can live apart from that and separate of that and just be a woman and raise my own children and to not be treated like I'm nothing. You know, I've never been a delinquent. I'm not an uneducated lady. You know, I'm pretty sure that 99.99% of the people who have done this to me in multiple states, multiple cities for many years, I'm pretty sure that none of them know how to do multivariable vector calculus. I'm pretty sure that none of them knows what a coefficient of friction is in physics. I'm pretty sure they don't know what the law of thermodynamics is in chemistry. I'm pretty sure they probably don't know what Avogadro's number is. You know, and that's the thing, like, you know, when you come from a race that I'm not even going to go into that right now because I'm really not acceptable in the Black community, not even among most of the Black women who are banding together right now. I'm really not acceptable to most of them either, so I'm not even gonna go into the conversation on that end. But I just always hoped that my spiritual journey, my many years of spiritual research on the Bible and ancient history and metaphysics and all that, I really hoped it would lead to me finding the place that's right for the type of person who I am. I always hoped it would lead to me finding a place where I can have a life that's genuinely decent for me, where just I always hoped it would lead for me to have a way to rescue my children, pack them up, leave the pseudo civilization behind, and be in a community that's for the type of people that we are, where they can learn to be men of good character, you know, where they can you know, have decent relationships and kind of really have a healthier life and not just a shell and an image of a false image of one. Not just that, but I want me to have something real. I want my children to have something real. I don't want them to grow up in a place where they're instilled with a lot of stuff that I'm just not even going to get into right now, because again, you know, even though Black women do get the short end of the stick, the reality is I'm not acceptable to most of them. They can do posturing and do all their little games in the media, but I'm not. And I'm like, okay, I know the white community is not my community. I know most of the Black community is not mine, not even among the Black women who are banding together because they're all that they have for each other. I know even in their circles, 99% of the time, I'm not wanted. I'm not viewed as one of them. I'm not acceptable. I can't even give a friendly hello to other Black women sometimes. They'll just look down their nose at me like, ugh, I can't believe you just spoke. I mean, same behavior as some of these white women, like, oh, how dare you speak to me and you don't know me. You know, it's like, it's like the attitude towards me in a lot of places has been, if you're not convenient, if your presence is not convenient to me, if your presence is not serving me, then you can get gone. And I don't care what somebody else may have done. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. I'm not going to do shit about it. And hey, have a nice life. I don't care if you die. I don't care if you're homeless again. I don't care if you're being covertly trafficked. Whatever. It's like, in a lot of places, that's been the attitude. And as much as I want to try to focus on the positive, I know that first, I know that for a lot of the people who are running around saying survival of the fittest, I know that their attitude is no different than the Africans who sold a lot of their best people in exchange for tobacco and alcohol. People, they like to say survival of the fittest all the time, but the truth is they want to get rid of anybody who they feel like they can't compete with, whether it's intellectually, physically, in terms of attractiveness or talent or spiritually or whatever. People, they don't get rid of people who can't compete with them. They don't get rid of people they can control easily. Like, even in the story of Christ, he posed a huge threat to the paycheck that the temple Pharisees and priests were receiving every month. How was the priests and the Pharisees going to feed their families if Yeshua came in and succeeded at upending everything? They were going to have no food. They were going to have no money, no land. They had wives and concubines trying to live like fucking kings. They wanted to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 wives and live like a king on donation money. And how are they going to afford to feed their harems? How are they going to afford to feed all their kids? How are they going to live that lavish life if Yeshua came in and upended all of it? So they had to get rid of him. And that's kind of like how life is. Like, when people get rid of people, it's not always for justice. Half the time, it's probably not for justice. Half the time, it's probably not a survival of the fittest thing. It's not. When they crucified Yeshua, was that a survival of the fittest thing? No, it wasn't. I mean, look at the Middle East and North Africa. It's a huge desert. It's dead. It's dead. It used to be green and beautiful, but now it's dead. And so those people who got what they wanted and killed the land, that really don't look like no survival of the fittest on no level to me. And with Africans who sold a lot of their own black people in exchange for tobacco and alcohol, that wasn't no survival of the fittest situation either.